Hey everyone, welcome back to Bucky's Customs. My name is Dana. Hey, in this video we're going to continue our V-Carve series with volume number 4. I'm going to do something that is very popular, and I've always been about trying to do something different, trying to be a little unique than everyone else, but and I guess this one is probably different than others that I've seen in the way that I'm carving it, but I know you've all seen it, and without further ado, let's get started with volume 4 of our Truth About V-Carve Inlay series. Hey, before we go any further, I want to say a big thank you to our sponsor, CNC Labs, the makers of the Longmill benchtop CNC, just like the one we have here in our shop. Go to their website, cnc.com, and order your mill today. You'll be so happy you did. Now let's get back to this week's project. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the board in the mill. As you know, I built this particular wasteboard specifically for doing this series of inlays because I needed to fasten my material somehow without having to put any clamps on the top of it, because we're going to be surfacing this whole face. I want to get this flat. I want it to be parallel to my x-axis. We're going to surface this. Now I'm going to surface it using G-Sender. I generally don't do a program in VCarve or CarveCo typically for surfacing. I usually use G-Sender. It's an excellent tool, and I'm going to show you how I went about doing that. I'm going to do a little screenplay here and show you how you can use G-Sender to surface your material, or your wasteboard for that matter. I used it to surface this to get it flat, and then I'm going to use it to surface this cutting board so that I can do an inlay. And it's important that your stock is parallel to your mill, because if it's not, you're going to get deeper on one side and not on the other. It's not going to come out right. You're definitely going to have some variation no matter what you do, because if you lean on any of this table, it's going to change everything. And I would highly recommend that once you start carving, you step back and watch it. Don't lean on your table. Don't push on your table. Don't even lean on any of your machine at all, because it could change how it carves. Especially with a wood table. If you have a metal table, it's a different story, but I still just let it go, let it do its thing. If you prep and you make sure that you've prepped properly, your mill should go ahead and do what it needs to do without any problem. So I've fastened this board down, and I've used a couple of wedges, one in the back, one on the side, and I have a positive fence stop this way. This board is in there. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to run through G-Sender and show you how to create that, and then we'll surface this board and get carving our inlay. Okay, we've got G-Sender open here, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how I use G-Sender for surfacing. And not just a wasteboard. It's, you know, it could surface anything. You can write a little pocketing program for just about any size for your mill or any project that you might have if you want to flatten that surface. And that's what we like to do with our cutting boards. We like to get them nice and flat on the mill itself so that everything is parallel to the x-axis. And this is how I do it. So we go right up here. We don't have to go into a CAD program and do a toolpath or anything like that. G-Sender has it built right in, which is really cool. So we're going to go up to surfacing. And now you can do your whole wasteboard. You can, as I said, or you can do an individual project, which is what we're going to do right now. Now, X and Y is the size of your project that you want to run this program for. This particular project, I already have the dimensions in there. Cut depth is 0.04. That's a default value. As you can see, if you just hover over these, it'll tell you what the default value is. It'll tell you what this one is 0.04. I'm going to do 0.06 because I want that second pass to be just 0.02 and give me a really nice smooth surface. And I'm going to get that by using a 1/4 inch end mill. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch spiral upcut, and I have the best luck with this particular bit whenever I'm surfacing projects. Now, if I was doing the wasteboard, I would use a wider, maybe 1 inch or 3/4 inch or even 1.5 inches surfacing bit. So, okay, let's keep going here. We're gonna do the spindle. Doesn't matter because I set that at the router. I have a Makita router on one of my mills, and I have an Avid router on this MK2. I usually run at about 3.5 to 4, and my step over, they default to 40. I want it to go to 30. So I changed it to 30. I want the smoothest I possibly can get without a whole bunch of restriction. The least amount of force that I put on this board, the better surface I'm going to get. Yes, it's going to take longer, but I've got a lot of time. So here we go. I'm going to run this off the center, the start position, and I'm going to go in a circular or spiral motion. And all we need to do now is just generate the G code. And it gives you a visualizer here and shows you your tool path. And now what I want to do is I'm assuming that I'm using G-Sender that's connected to my machine. This G-Sender program is not connected to my machine. It's in my office, and this is the machine that I do all my editing. I create everything in CarveCo Maker. I use this particular machine for Vcarve Pro only because it's much more powerful than the machine that I use, the laptop that I use on the Longmill itself. So the only thing I have on those laptops are Lightburn and G-Sender, and so therefore I would probably just create this in G-Sender on the mill, but in order for me to edit it into this particular video for you, I'm doing it on my other computers. So that's why we're not connected to the machine. But if I was, I would want to run this in the main visualizer, and then we would be able, all these features to the right would be enabled, and we'd be able to set our X and Y for the center of the board, and then use our auto zero touch block to set up the Z. And then we can go ahead and carve. So let's get right into that. Okay, so now we've started with the surfacing of the cutting board here, and you can see along the edge where I used my 1.5 inch surfacing bit, and it did not like the cherry. For some reason, it was pretty dull, and I need to get that sharpened. Otherwise, a sharp bit would probably do really well here. But I found overall the 1/4 inch upcut that I'm using is way better in this application, at least for this cherry board. I know I had said maple in the beginning, but this is a cherry and grain cutting board. We ran it with no issues with the 1/4 inch upcut and came out perfectly smooth. I was very happy with that. And it's a great start to our inlay project. Okay, let's head over to Vcarve Pro and show you what we're going to carve for our inlay in Volume 4. Okay, we've jumped into Vcarve Pro. I'm going to go right to the layers menu and I'm going to show you what we started with here. And there she is, our famous cow. Let's go over here and shut this toolpath off so we don't have to keep looking at that. This is the beef. Something I've been wanting to do for a long time on a cutting board. I've had several people ask me to do this in a cutting board, and I'm finally getting to it. I was not going to do this in this series, but I had so many requests that I decided to go ahead and put one together. So this is what I started with, and I'll show you. Shutting the bitmap layer off, I'll show you what my layer 1 was. This is what I ended up with. Now, you see this outline on here, that's a juice groove that I'm going to put in this because obviously whoever's going to use this is going to put some beef on this, and they might cut a prime rib or something like that, and a juice groove would be a handy thing to have, and I haven't done one yet, so I'm going to do that in this particular video. So, all right. So basically, I went in and I edited to make the vectors wider to give me more width, more space, so that hopefully we have a good adhesion with the plug into the female part and we don't get any tear out or breakage as a result of sanding or surfacing the plug off of the cutting board itself. So, all right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to quickly show you what else I've done. I've created different layers in case, section borders in case you wanted to make the border of the cow a different wood, maybe a walnut or a different colored wood. I did the same thing for the lettering. I created the plug and I mirrored it. That's ready to go. I created the pocket, which is what we're going to carve first. And I also created the juice groove. So basically, I've already created the tool paths. What we're going to do now is I'm going to go back to layer 1, turn that off. Actually, no, we want the whole pocket first. That's what we're going to cut. That's the first one. And shows you the tool paths there. I can do a preview of this, and there is our pocket. I think it's plenty wide enough. This board is 15 inches wide, 12 inches high. I think I've got good depth and width, hopefully, and we'll see. So let's reset this preview. We'll close the preview window. Let's open up the pocket, or excuse me, the plug, and do a preview of that. And there it is. You can see it's got it's recessed, so we need to cut this excess off and glue this in the pocket. I'm pretty excited about this one. Okay, so let's jump on over to G-Sender and our MK2 and get this carve started.
Wow,
That is so smooth. Um, I'm amazed at how smooth that is. I'm uh, I'm very impressed with these 1/4 inch bits. I can't even feel lines or anything in there, and you know, not for nothing, but that's why I use a 1/4 inch bit, because it gives me the very best surface for doing an inlay. And now we're going to change the bit. I'm going to use my 60-degree V bit. I have a 1/4 inch 60-degree V bit, and it is the only bit that I've used in this series. I've told you all before that if you want to get finer lines, you have to use steeper bits. And in this case, with this particular carve, I went with fatter lines, wider lines, so that I can get um, a better result from the 60 degree. You can make a lot of things with a 60-degree V-bit, a lot of inlays. So don't be discouraged on that. I do like these because you do have to use a wider font and wider vectors, but that gives you more holding power, right? So we'll put this bit in and we'll carve the female portion or the pocket, and then we'll take the cutting board out and we'll put the inlay material in for the male, and we'll carve that, glue it together, and then we'll do a whole bunch of sanding. Okay, everyone, what we're going to do now is we're going to carve the plug, or the male portion that goes into our inlay that we have already carved. And as you can see, I have it mounted in the mill. Now in this case, I did some painter's tape and some CA glue to hold that down. I want to make sure it stays flat. And we also did not surface this. I don't see any need to, because we're going to be carving it. It's going to be going inside the pocket of the cutting board, so I really don't see a need. I did flatten it on my drum sander and I mic'd it. It's pretty close, but I'm going to give this a shot and see what happens. I believe it's going to be okay. Now, I also am going to use the wedges on the outside just to hold this in. I'm going to do the V-carve bit first, then I'm going to do the roughing pass. And let's get going on that. We're doing a homing cycle, and then we will set our Z and our X and Y. I'm going to set my X and Y to this X here. It's the center of this board. And then we'll set the Z with the touch plate, just like we did for the last one. Yeah, you think I had enough clamps on that? Holy crap. Yeah, I got a little nervous about just clamping it, and wanted to make sure, because we're using end grain, this does give a little bit. You have to put more pressure on these boards because they will flex more so than, you know, a cross grain situation. So yeah, in the future here, if I'm going to do more of these inlays, I think I'm going to have to come up with a better solution for clamping. And if y'all have any suggestions out there, I would really appreciate you put them in the comments below. That would be a big help. And what I have works, what I've been doing works, but let's get this back in the MK2 and we'll get this inlay cleaned off and do some sanding and show you what we end up with. Volume 4 of our inlay series is done, and it came out pretty good. I did one of the most popular inlays that I could find on the internet, and I think it came out pretty good. I had some thin lines in here and they stayed. I think the key to that was I let this board sit with the plug glued in it for 12 hours before I touched it. Then I surfaced it on the MK2, the Longmill MK2, and then I spent 2 hours sanding. End grain cutting boards are extremely difficult to sand. So whenever we get the opportunity to mill in our long mill, to mill the surface, we want to try to give us the best possible start we can get. And when I did that 1/4 inch across the top of this, it really, really was awesome. I made a tool path for the juice groove, but I didn't have enough room in this cutting board because I had to cut a little bit off at each side, or top and bottom, because of the end grain being split, and I didn't want to leave that in there. So I took as much as I could off, and I really didn't feel comfortable putting a juice groove in there, but very easy to do. I'll leave a link in the description or in the up here somewhere where I made a jig so you could make a juice groove with a handheld router. But I made the jig on the long mill, and 9 times out of 10 I'm gonna do it in there. If I have the opportunity to do a juice groove, I'll do it in one of the mills. But there are times when you need to go somewhere, or you just can't use the mill. So I really wanted that jig for that reason. Other than that, not a bad finish. So we've got one more video to go, and I hope if you're watching this video, if you watched the first 3, and that you liked it so much that you subscribe to the channel and you click the notification bell so that YouTube will let you know when I post anything else. And I have been putting together some other videos for after this series, so be on the lookout for those too. I'd appreciate it. And for all of those of you who have subscribed and are watching my videos, thank you. Appreciate it very much. And until next time, be safe out there.